Awesome. All right. Yeah, let's jump into it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on the inaugural episode of Building the Empire, which is a podcast hosted by the Commercial Real Estate Group here at Georgia State. My name is Payton Broadus. I'm the Vice President of the Real Estate Club, and I'm here with my co-host, Jennifer. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jennifer Cruz, and I'm currently serving as the president of the Commercial Real Estate Club here at Georgia State. Super excited about the conversation today.
Yeah, and we are joined by the one and only Mark Toro, a man that needs no introduction, but I'll give a brief intro. Mark is currently at Toro Development Company, his own development company that he founded in 2021. And prior to starting Toro Development Company, Mark Toro co-founded and led the North American Properties Atlanta office, where he oversaw over $3 billion in real estate development, totaling more than 9 million square feet. So his successes at North American Properties include the repositioning of Atlantic Station, the development of Alphareta's $1 billion Avalon, and the redevelopment of Colony Square. Mark is very active in the community as he is serving on the ICSC's Board of Trustees. He's on the board of Midtown Alliance and serves as the vice chair of the City of Refuge Board, where he chaired the $25 million Shining the Light Capital campaign. So, Mark, did I leave anything out? Is there anything that you'd like to add?
I think that's lengthy enough. Thank you. I'm sorry for boring everyone with that. And thanks to both of you, Peyton and Jennifer, for having me today. I'm thrilled. I've had the opportunity to do some guest lecturing and just sort of contributing at Tech and at Georgia. So this is my first Georgia State gig, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we hope it's the first of many interactions between you and Georgia State. So why don't we just start from the beginning? So if you could tell us, where did you grow up and how did that affect who you have become?
So I grew up in New Jersey. I was telling Jennifer that I went to Rutgers University, met my wife there, graduated in 1981. Started my graduate work at the University of Florida in building construction. My undergraduate degree was in civil engineering. And my father and grandfather were both in the construction business, worked construction every summer, spring break and Christmas break, my entire school career. My wife went to Life University here in Atlanta to study chiropractic, and I got lovesick and broke and dropped out of grad school in Florida and followed her to Atlanta. And the rest is history. Took the first job I could find, making $17,000 a year. I thought I was rich. And as a junior estimator for a general contractor, and launched into my career.
Was construction, was being in the general contracting field kind of just a no-brainer after seeing your dad and grandfather in construction? Did you ever consider doing something different, or did you have your sights kind of set on that?
When I was a kid, I don't know, I wanted to be a astronaut or a pilot or a doctor or an Indian chief, whatever. And through building buildings and seeing the construction process, I thought I wanted to be a builder. I didn't know what a developer was. And then in 1983, I think, 83, I met a guy named Bob Nelson who was with Robinson Humphrey American Express, and they were doing development. They developed Atlanta Financial Center as an example, the building that straddles Georgia 400. And he was the developer of a little office park on Claremont Road, just west of 85, called Century Lake Office Condominiums. And I was the project manager for the general contractor, and met him and started to I was wondering, who is this guy and what does he do? I thought buildings were built by construction companies, and concluded that there was a pecking order, there was a food chain. And the further up the food chain you go, closer to being the principal and investor and developer and creator of buildings. And that's the way I looked at things then. I looked at it relative to the building. it looked like an interesting gig. He drove a shiny big black Mercedes and had shiny shoes and looked like he was enjoying himself. So I followed in his footsteps, and he's mentored me ever since. He's still a good friend.
Gotcha. That's cool. So after that, you spent some time, or your first job was at the Beck Group. Then you spent some time at two other shops, one notably being Cousins. And then this short stint at a company called Payton in Atlanta. You were leading retail development for Southeast region. So was that your first experience kind of into the retail side? Because now you're kind of the mixed use retail guy.
Yeah, well, actually, at Cousins and before that, Newmarket, we were in the business of developing suburban shopping centers, and that retail DNA is extremely helpful in the mixed use realm today, because what we've seen is that most, if not all, of the truly iconic retail mixed use projects, retail dominant mixed use projects in the US are developed by developers with retail DNA who cut their teeth in retail. You see a lot of mixed use everywhere. Everything's mixed use now, right? But often it's an apartment building with a little coffee shop or a bank branch or a something retail. That's really a nuisance to the guy who does apartments or office buildings or hotels, because their paradigm is all of the revenue that they're going to gain in the rental rates in office, multifamily, and hotel. What they miss is how much value an activated street level experience creates for the uses above and beside. So the retail, the opportunity I had at Payton when I was at Newmarket and Cousins, it was a natural transition from construction into development by taking the role of managing design, architecture, entitlements, permitting, and construction, and tenant coordination, I'll call it. So all of those pieces were critical capabilities and skill sets that I had to develop as a young person in the industry. And then Henry Payton, may he rest in peace, he passed a couple of years ago, ran a great business, very prolific developer out of Charlotte in the 70s and 80s, did a bunch of regional malls and is still around. But he gave me a shot. He said, now that you know the hard part of the business, meaning the nuts and bolts part, let's teach you the soft side and give you a shot at running the whole deal. And that was my, I'll call it, debut as a full-on developer. And that was a relatively short stint, because then I was recruited by a family office out of Cincinnati to launch North American Properties in Atlanta. And that was an opportunity to be relatively autonomous with build my own team, build my own company, and have a capital partner that was supportive and engaged. So yeah, that was kind of how it worked.
Okay, gotcha. That's a great segue into North American Properties. So Jennifer, take it away.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I want to dig a little bit more into your time at North American Properties. So while you were there, you were responsible for leading some of the greatest projects in the Atlanta and Metro Atlanta area, including the Avalon, Atlantic Station, and Colony Square. And us as Georgia State students, we're really familiar with these developments as they're close to home. And because of the success with these projects, you were listed in Atlanta Magazine in 2015 as Atlanta's 55 most powerful. And in 2020, you were listed as one of Atlanta's 25 most influential people. What key factors throughout your journey have contributed to your success in executing these projects?
Well, there's one acronym that I can cite that we created, WWWDWB. Who will do what by when? It's often the case in business and in life that people say, I'll get that to you ASAP. In our business, ASAP is a 4-letter word. So is soon. what we have developed is the ability to follow up on commitments that people make to us. We manage these massive teams. I mean, in a real estate development like Avalon or Colony Square, there are hundreds of people who are relying on each other to perform I'll call it a task, a function, in order so that they can perform their task or function. And when the commitments that are made are either not kept or they're fuzzy as to when they expect to deliver whatever the deliverable is. So if an architect owes us a site plan on Tuesday, the Tuesday they're held to Tuesday. And there are two types of people in the world. One group of people does what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. The other group of people does not do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. When we determine over however many strikes you want to give somebody, over a period of time that an individual or a company is in the latter group, we cut them from the team. So, and we all hold ourselves to the same standard. We hold ourselves accountable. We hold each other accountable. And as long as everybody's on the same page, everybody agrees that that's an important component to our success, then it's all good. And the teams that we've worked with, there's a guy named David Floyd. He's a landscape architect. He has been on every team, every project I've ever built since 1990. And that's probably 45 or 50 projects. Is he the least expensive? Absolutely not. Is he the most creative? Yes. Is he the most responsive? Yes. Is he the most reliable? Absolutely. So those team members that perform at that level will always have a seat at the table. Those team members who don't, won't. I was interviewed in 2015 by the New York Times in a column called Corner Office, which invites CEOs to share their stories about how they grew up and where, and I spent 90 minutes with this reporter in their office in New York City and this columnist. And what he took away from it was that acronym, who will do what by when. It's all about accountability. It's all about performance. It's all about us being able to rely on each other as teammates. There are lots of other factors. There's creativity and there's diligence and there's smart and run faster and jump higher. But in the end, it's just about doing what you say you're going to do when you said you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually kind of curious to know, do you have a philosophy for leadership style and how do you execute that across your teams?
Philosophy for what? I'm sorry.
Just like a philosophy that you go about delegating tasks and keeping the team motivated. How do you kind of establish your leadership style?
Well, first of all, we have a saying, actually, we've got a wall here in my office that, some people have mission statements and vision statements and so forth on the wall. We're here to create a better world or something like that. We have a bunch of statements on the wall that is our shit we say wall. It's just things that have developed has become our vernacular over the years. One of those is only do what only you can do. So if there is something that I can delegate to someone who can either grow by performing that task or perform it better than I can, then I'm going to delegate that task. And I delegate quite a bit, virtually everything to my team, who are extremely capable. Most of them have been with me for more than a decade. They came with me from North American Properties. And they all understand how we can operate together. I also believe that throwing young people in the deep end is the best way for them to learn, knowing that you got to stand by the edge of the pool with a lifesaver to throw it to them if necessary. But there are a lot of things that are philosophically hardwired into us now that have developed over the last however many years, 25, 30, 40 years in this business. Another is the best idea wins no matter where it comes from. Often a young analyst or leasing or marketing assistant or something will be sitting in a meeting, and we often have team meetings with all of our internal team present, even if they may not have a role to play in that specific interaction. But often they'll come up with an idea that out of nowhere that may have been something that they saw in their travels or something that they've experienced in their life, and they have a unique perspective, notwithstanding the fact that they may be 23 years old and we're in our 60s. They experienced something, and by the way, that generation is a whole market segment that we've got to serve that we have no clue about. So it's important that we first encourage everyone on the team to share their perspective, and then honor them by considering their idea, notwithstanding the fact that they may not have experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That diverse perspective, skill sets, and experiences definitely leads to, having a team that, can execute these amazing projects and bring in new ideas. And I think we even see that now, like running our student organization, we see a lot of people with, really cool ideas for our club, and, we do exactly that. So.
Yeah. So Mark, I'm curious to know, was that an environment you experienced earlier in your career as well? Because, it seems to me that commercial real estate is somewhat of a rigid industry, pay your dues, kind of wait your turn type thing. So to hear that seems like a refreshing perspective. I'm just, what inspired you to kind of take that approach?
Well, again, another mentor, a guy named Dan Dupree, who most recently was chairman of Preferred Apartment Communities, but was the founder of New Market Development Company. And I joined that firm in April of 1990, only to find many of my coworkers were my age and were young and aggressive and having the time of their lives, working their ass off, doing great stuff. At the time, we were the largest power center developer in the US, and we were working from Texas to the Carolinas to Florida to Virginia, and extremely hardworking, hard charging, play hard group. And Dan was very eager to offer those of us who showed promise, and we all did. We were a really smart and aggressive. In fact, there are probably easily a dozen, if not two, people in the industry in senior roles today that came out of what I call the Dan Dupree University class of 1990. He was a great mentor and had that mindset. When I founded North American in 96, I brought with me 2 or 3, maybe 4 new market people because they understood the culture, and we wanted to build our culture around that. In fact, Vicky Boyce, who's my current CFO, was with me at Newmarket in April of 1990, and we understand what it looks like. So I emulate it every day. One of our beliefs is that there are no original ideas. Let's go study the world and maybe take something and borrow something and improve on it. That's the case with cultures in organizations as well. I can tell you that your observation of the commercial real estate industry in Atlanta is accurate, that it's definitely an old boys club, and that breaking in and ascending is really a challenge for young people, and I've witnessed it. For me, being a Puerto Rican kid from New Jersey who went to the State University of New Jersey as opposed to W&L or Carolina or Georgia State, or and growing up and not having grown up with parents in the business and gone to Westminster and done that whole gig, it was tough to break in, and but it's very doable. It's just a matter of exceeding expectations. It's another thing that's cultural for us. Everybody on our team, it's funny. It's odd to say you're expected to exceed expectations, but that is the case. And that's how you excel in this business. If you're given a task, you do it faster and better. than you anticipate that your manager expects.
Right. No, I'm actually really glad you said that. Our listeners are going to love that bit about, you not being from the perfect cookie cutter background. One of the big parts about our club is just how diverse we are. Jennifer is our first female president, which is awesome. And our whole group is very diverse. So it's good to hear that, no matter what background you come from, you can still be as successful as someone like yourself, given that you're willing to, go in and exceed expectations, really.
Yeah, the Atlanta commercial real estate industry is the most male-dominated, lily white group of people you could find. It's unfortunate. Everybody talks about diversifying and offering, different perspectives. I'm going to be talking. I said I've done Georgia and Georgia Tech, now Georgia State. I'm doing Morehouse in February. Just sort of exposure to various groups of what real estate is about. I literally, grew up in the construction business, had no clue that real estate existed, that there was such a thing as a commercial real estate developer. And I'm sure there are lots of people like me out there who can be exposed to it. So I applaud your focus on diversity. It's something our industry needs sorely.
Absolutely. And yeah, I also want to highlight, just the power of community. I definitely relate to what you mentioned. I'm also a Latina coming from a Mexican background, first generation college student, first person in my family to go into commercial real estate. And a big thing I see that helps us overcome these challenges is building community. I'm kind of curious to know, you've mentioned you've had several mentors in the past. How do you go about building a community and maintaining relationships?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, many of my relationships and friendships over the years have been built around business. I'm a shitty golfer. I don't know how to fish. I don't, which by the way, leads me not to fit in with the lily white old boys club in the commercial real estate industry, So from a social perspective, I've often gravitated either to friends of my daughters or friends of my wife's or friends from work. And I'm not really good at maintaining relationships. So the extent that I've got a relationship that is current from a current deal I'm working on, that's enjoyable, but I often don't carry those relationships through life. The exception is that Dan Dupree University class of 1990 I mentioned earlier. We have a group that gets together 3 or 4 times a year. We did a Christmas dinner at the Palm in their private dining room, and there are 10 or 12 of us. And, we sort of grew up together in the business. And that's kind of an aberration in my life generally. But I think that relationships, right now, as an example, we're working with a family on a big site in Florida. And I really like these people. I mean, as people, I enjoy spending time with them and their family. And we've gotten to the point in our careers where we don't have to work with people who we don't enjoy. And that's a real luxury, because early in your career, I had a boss, I won't name him, who was a real challenge. I worked for about 5 years, and I had a job to do, and I did it. And now we don't have to work with people we don't want to work with, but we really want to work with the people who we love, and that building our community of friendships and relationships is a critical piece. But the broader community that we create in our practice is something that I've really become enamored with. I'll call it the last 4 or 5 years. When we created Avalon, actually at Atlantic Station, and then subsequently at Colony Square, we, in hindsight, found that we started thinking we're going to build buildings, and we ended up building community. And if you've been to Avalon on a sunny Sunday afternoon, there are people here just doing life together, and that they love this place, and I love this place, and there's a tremendous amount of warmth and positive vibe that we have experienced, and we candidly did not set out to do that. We had no idea that would be the net result, but now we know how to do it. We know what pieces and parts, we know the ingredients to that secret sauce. So now we will do it at Medley, we'll do it in our Nashville project, and we'll do it in subsequent projects from there.
Kind of going off that, Mark. First of all, I'm from Alpharetta. I remember when Avalon first opened. So on behalf of everybody from Alpharetta, I have to say thank you for giving us an upgrade from North Point Mall. That is fantastic. But I've heard you talk about the third place before, and that is definitely Avalon. That's definitely Atlantic Station. That's Colony Square. So how do you actually go about garnering that in a development? Because other developments have tried to do that and, maybe haven't been as successful. So what do you think the key to that third place is?
Well, back to there are no original ideas. When we acquired Atlantic Station and went on to develop Avalon, there's a gentleman by the name of Ron Fowle, who unfortunately passed tragically a couple of years ago, dear friend. And he and I started back at Dan Dupree University in 1990. I mean, and he was a leasing agent and went on to do a number of really great things, but he was interested in joining us to do the retail leasing for originally Atlantic Station, then Avalon, then Colony Square. And I remember one day we had bought Atlantic Station. We were not yet office there, so we were officing at the Peachtree Club in Midtown, and he had his laptop with him. He flipped his laptop open and he flicked through a bunch of photographs. First of the Grove in LA, then of Americana brand in Glendale, and then Santana Row in San Jose. And he says, we've got to go see these deals. Ron had been working on a deal in Sunnyvale, California, and had really become conversant in the state of the art in mixed use in those projects. So we got on a plane and we went out there, and we probably have returned easily a dozen, if not 20 times since then, and started to study what made these, I'll call them projects, communities, tick. And we came away, and then in the summer of 2011, we went on a much broader tour, Texas, Arizona, all over the Midwest, and started to look at what the state of the art was in mixed use, and came away with that Santana Row and the Grove were, and still are, two of the best in the US. Now Avalon has joined that group, but at the time Avalon didn't exist. So when we were pitching retailers, Apple or Lululemon or Anthropologie, with the opportunity to come to Avalon, we characterized it was before it was named Avalon. We called it Santana Grove, because this physical plant that is now Avalon is a very close facsimile to Santana Row, and the operational piece is a very close facsimile to the Grove. The physical plant needs to accommodate gathering. I follow an author and an entrepreneur named Chip Conley, who I just recently attended his Modern Elder Academy, and he wrote a manifesto called "Why We Gather." It can be found on his website, and it really hit a nerve, because I've witnessed and I've observed gatherings of all sizes and shapes. Families. There are groups of people who are obviously all related because they all look alike, sitting out on the patio at Rumi's. Or there are groups of people, young people, that are playing cornhole. There are groups of people that come out to do yoga together. There are groups of people that come to the they're regulars at our Friday Night Live concerts that come to Avalon because they want to do life together with others. And that third place effect, which we originally called the Avalon effect, by the way, is really the third place is that place beyond work and home where you go to do life together. So it's, for some people, it's the barbershop or the hair salon or the pool hall or the golf course or the country club, or wherever you hang out with your people, right? But what we observed in Santana Row and the Grove especially was this notion that people just come there to be. They don't go, people don't come to Avalon often to go to Superica or to Oak, unless they have a reservation, because they're both 2.5-hour wait. So people come here and they decide what to do when they come here. I don't know, Payton, if that was your experience when you were, growing up in Alpharetta, but that's what people have reported to us. So what we started to call, and what transpired here is that multifamily rents, office rents, absorption rates, hotel ADR, single family residential sales pricing, all of them were 60 to 200% of the market. Why is that? Well, each of those users wants to be here on the street level. The Avalon experience in the plazas, at the events, shopping, dining, whatever it is visceral. People feel it. And when we first started to observe the premium that we're able to achieve in each of these uses, we started to call it the Avalon effect. It was that premium value lift associated with what happens on the street level. It's not about the space, in the case of office. It's not about the space, it's about the place. And the reason that the office space at Avalon is 100% leased at top of the market rents has nothing to do with the office building. Zero. It's a pretty plain vanilla office building. But it has everything to do with what happens on the street level. So that is what we call the third place effect. It's the premium value lift associated with having a third place outside your front door.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And you guys, to say the least, hit a freaking home run with Avalon. I mean, it's just super cool to see a property like that. And now Avalon's coming up on what, its 8th birthday this year. And it's still, just as cool as it was in 2014, which I think is even more impressive, that it's been able to kind of keep up that momentum for so long. It's still the top place. It's still cool, despite other developments, mixed use developments coming in the area. It doesn't seem like Avalon is going anywhere anytime soon. So you guys did a great job with it. And, I'm not sure if you guys or you guys don't have any ownership in it anymore, do you?
We sold to Prudential in 2016 with an earnout for the second phase in 2017. But North American Properties team, the team that we built in 2011, that we started building in 2011, is still here managing and leasing Avalon. So it's still very near and dear to our heart. I spent some time with the team this morning. In fact, I live here now, an office here. So we eat our own cooking.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Mark, we're coming up here on time. I definitely don't want to hold you. So, I want to say thank you. Our listeners who are going to be mostly college students, as we're kind of ending here, could you just leave us and our listeners with maybe a couple pieces of advice that you think that we should have?
Yeah, often when I look at resumes of young people, even early in their careers, it doesn't appear linear, I'll call it. In this business, I didn't like that. So I got in this business, I didn't like that. I didn't, So if you can maintain a linear path during school that includes internships and other like your real estate group and other interests that indicate a passion for real estate, that's a really good thing. If you happen to be born to parents who are in the business, that's a really good thing. My daughter runs our marketing here, and the fact that she grew up in the business is a really important leg up. Notwithstanding the fact that I was not happy about competing with guys were fourth generation real estate guys in my career. The other piece is it's important to learn anything and everything you can about the organization that you're interviewing with. This is kind of a fundamental thing, but I see a lot of people miss this. Everything about the people. It's so easy now to Google somebody and get their LinkedIn profile and find their Instagram account and their Twitter account, their TikTok or whatever it is nowadays, and learn anything and everything you can about that individual and that company. And when you show up on their doorstep, you should know more about their company than they do. And express extreme and sincere interest in them as individuals and in their company. Because you're there to serve them. They're going to give you a job, they're going to pay you money, and they're going to make you part of their team. One way to prove that you're worthy of that is showing interest in them. So that's my, I'm sure I could go on for a long time, but we are at time. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much again. We got to talk about your start, building community, diversity within commercial real estate, creating that third place. We got to cover a lot in this short conversation. So thank you. This was awesome. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our episode of Building the Empire. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the next one. But seriously, thank you again, Mark. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Payton, Jennifer, and good luck to everybody out there.
Thank you.